The massive space station Kepler-7 floated in the darkness between stars, its metal walls gleaming under the light of distant suns. Inside the station, hundreds of beings from different worlds walked through the corridors. Some had 4 arms, others had scales instead of skin, and a few had eyes that glowed in the dark. But today was special. Today, the first group of humans had arrived at the Galactic Military Academy. Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck, watching as the transport ships docked with the station. His uniform was crisp and clean with the Earth symbol on his shoulder patch. He had been chosen to lead this new program because he understood both human and alien military traditions. The job was not easy, but someone had to make it work. The first transport ship opened its doors, and 20 human cadets stepped out. They looked small compared to the alien beings around them. Most humans were shorter than the other species, with soft skin and no natural armor. The aliens watched them with curious eyes, some whispering to each other in their strange languages. Among the human cadets was Lisa Rodriguez, a young woman from California. She was 22 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her uniform fit her perfectly, and she carried herself with confidence. Lisa had trained for 3 years to get to this academy. She knew this was her chance to prove that humans belonged among the stars. As Lisa walked through the station, she noticed how the alien cadets stared at her group. Some looked curious, others seemed doubtful. A few even looked like they felt sorry for the humans. Lisa had expected this reaction. Earth's military leaders had warned them that other species might see humans as weak. The academy's main hall was enormous, with a ceiling that stretched up so high it disappeared into shadows. Hundreds of cadets from dozens of different worlds filled the space. There were the tall, bird-like avalons with their sharp beaks and feathered arms. The rock-skinned Gorvani stood like living mountains, their voices rumbling when they spoke. The insect-like Chitheri clicked and buzzed to each other in their complex language. Commander Morrison stepped up to the speaking platform, his voice carried clearly through the hall's sound system. Welcome, cadets, to the Galactic Military Academy. You are here to become the first truly integrated defense force in galactic history. Each of your species brings unique strengths to this alliance. Lisa listened carefully as the commander continued. You will train together, learn together, and fight together. The galaxy faces new threats that no single species can handle alone. Only by working as one can we protect our worlds and our people. An alien cadet near Lisa made a sound that might have been laughter. She turned to look at him and felt her breath catch. The being was massive, almost 8 feet tall, with thick arms and legs covered in what looked like natural armor plating. His skin was a dark green color with patches of harder scales along his shoulders and back. His face was long and narrow, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. This was Zarthik, a member of the Korthani warrior caste. His people were known throughout the galaxy as fierce fighters who valued strength and honor above all else. The Korthani had been fighting wars for thousands of years, and their soldiers were feared by their enemies. Zarthik looked down at Lisa with what she thought might be amusement. To him, she probably looked like a child playing dress-up in a military uniform. Lisa was 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed about 130 pounds. Zarthik was nearly 3 feet taller and probably weighed 4 times as much. After the welcome ceremony, the cadets were divided into training groups. Each group had members from different species, which was supposed to help them learn to work together. Lisa found herself assigned to Group 7, along with Zarthik and several other aliens. Their first instructor was Sergeant Blake Turner, a human veteran who had fought in Earth's colonial wars. He was a tough man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of combat. Turner had volunteered for this assignment because he believed in the mission. Listen up, cadets, Turner said as he looked over his mixed group. I know some of you think this integration program is a waste of time. You think your species is better than the others. Well, you're wrong. Every species here has something valuable to offer. Zarthik shifted his weight, his armor plates clicking softly. In his culture, strength was everything. A warrior who could not fight was worthless. He had seen the humans' test scores and physical measurements. They were weak by any reasonable standard. Lisa noticed Zarthik's reaction and understood what he was thinking. She had dealt with similar attitudes during her training on Earth. Some of the male cadets had doubted her abilities until she proved herself. She would have to do the same thing here, but on a much larger scale. Turner continued his briefing. Your first week will focus on basic training exercises. You'll learn each other's capabilities and limitations. You'll also participate in cross-species sparring matches to understand different fighting styles. The mention of sparring matches caught everyone's attention. The alien cadets looked interested, while the humans seemed nervous. Lisa felt a mixture of excitement and concern. She had trained in martial arts since she was 12 years old, but she had never fought anyone like these aliens. During the lunch break, Lisa sat with the other humans at a table in the academy's cafeteria. The alien cadets kept their distance, forming their own groups based on species. The separation was not official, but it was clear that integration would take time. Did you see the size of some of these aliens? Asked Eddie-chan, a human cadet from New York. That Korthami guy could probably break me in half. They're just bigger, Lisa replied. Size isn't everything in a fight. Easy for you to say, Danny shot back. You're not the one who has to spar with them. Lisa looked across the cafeteria at Zarthik, who was eating with 3 other Korthani cadets. They were talking in their own language, their voices deep and rumbling. Occasionally, one of them would look toward the human table and make what sounded like a comment that caused the others to laugh. After lunch, the cadets were given a tour of the academy's training facilities. The gymnasium was larger than a football field, with different areas set up for various types of combat training. Their weapon racks filled with practice swords, staffs, and energy weapons. Thick mats covered the floor in sections marked for hand-to-hand combat. Lisa examined the training equipment with interest. Most of it was designed for larger, stronger beings than humans. The practice weapons were heavier than what she was used to, and the protective gear was built for species. With natural armor, Turner noticed her studying the equipment. Don't worry, Rodriguez. We have human-sized gear for you and your people. The Academy wants this to be fair for everyone. Fair might not be the right word, Sergeant, Lisa replied, but I think it will be educational. Turner smiled at her confidence. He had read her file and knew about her martial arts background. Lisa had earned black belts in 3 different fighting styles and had won several tournaments. She was not as helpless as she appeared. The day ended with the cadets returning to their quarters. Lisa shared a room with another human cadet named Amy Park, who was studying to become a communications officer. As they prepared for bed, Amy expressed her doubts about the program. I don't know if this is going to work, Amy said. The aliens seem to think we're just going to slow them down. Lisa looked out their small window at the stars beyond. Maybe that's exactly what we need to show them we're not, she said quietly. Tomorrow would bring their first real training session, and Lisa was ready to prove that humans belonged among the stars. The training gymnasium buzzed with nervous energy as cadets from different worlds gathered for their first cross-species combat exercise. Lisa Rodriguez stood with her human teammates, watching as instructor Blake Turner set up the sparring mats. The morning light from the station's artificial sun cast long shadows across the massive training floor. Turner had spent the night reviewing medical files and combat data from each species. The differences were striking. The Korthani, like Zarthik, had bone density 3 times greater than humans. The Avalans possessed hollow bones but compensated with incredible speed and sharp talons. The Gorvani were living rocks that could absorb massive amounts of damage. All right, cadets, Turner announced, his voice carrying across the gym. Today we begin cross-species sparring. Each of you will face opponents from different worlds. This is not about winning or losing, this is about understanding. Zarthik stood with his fellow Korthani warriors, his yellow eyes scanning the human cadets with barely concealed amusement. In the past week he had watched the humans during basic training exercises. They were slow compared to Avalans, weak compared to Gorvani, and fragile compared to almost everyone else. He wondered why the Alliance had even bothered to include them. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the Academy's chief medical officer, stepped forward carrying a portable scanner. He was a middle-aged human with kind eyes and gentle hands that had saved countless lives during the colonial wars. "Before we begin, I need to explain the safety protocols," he said. The doctor activated his scanner and pointed it at Danny Chun, one of the human cadets. Human bone density averages 1.8 grams per cubic centimeter. Muscle fiber strength is approximately 300 newtons per square centimeter. He then turned the scanner towards Zarthik. Courtney bone density is 5.2 grams per cubic centimeter. Muscle fiber strength exceeds 800 newtons per square centimeter. Several alien cadets made sounds of surprise. They had not realized the difference was so extreme. To them, the humans looked like they were made of glass. "This is why we must exercise extreme caution," Dr. Walsh continued. "What might be a gentle tap for a Courtney could seriously injure a human. We ask all non-human cadets to use no more than 5% of their normal strength when sparring with humans." Zarthik's armor plates shifted as he made a sound of disgust. 5%? That was barely enough force to move his own limbs. How could they call this combat training when one side had to pretend to be asleep? Turner began calling out sparring pairs. "Rodriguez and Zarthik, you're up first," he announced. "This will be a demonstration match for the other cadets." Lisa stepped forward calmly while Zarthik lumbered onto the mat. The size difference was even more obvious when they stood face to face. Zarthik's chest was at the same level as Lisa's head. His arms were longer than her entire torso. "Remember," Turner called out, "this is about technique and understanding, not power." The other cadets formed a circle around the mat. The humans looked worried for Lisa's safety. The aliens seemed curious about how long she would last before giving up. Lisa took a basic fighting stance, her feet shoulder-width apart, her hands raised in a defensive position. She had studied videos of Courtney fighting styles during the past week. They relied heavily on powerful strikes and grappling techniques that took advantage of their size and strength. Zarthik looked down at her and shook his head. This was pointless. The human looked like she was preparing to fight a mountain. He decided to end this quickly so they could move on to real training. "Begin," Turner called out. Zarthik moved forward slowly, his massive feet making soft thuds on the mat. He threw a careful punch toward Lisa's shoulder, using what he thought was minimal force. Even at 5% strength, the blow would have been enough to knock most humans unconscious. Lisa sidestepped the punch easily, letting it pass inches from her body. She could feel the air move as Zarthik's fist swept past her. The aliens' movements were powerful but predictable. His size worked against him, making it hard to change direction quickly. Zarthik threw another slow punch, this time aimed at Lisa's midsection. Again, she moved out of the way without difficulty. The watching cadets began to murmur among themselves. The human was faster than they had expected. Growing frustrated, Zarthik increased his speed slightly. His next punch came faster, but Lisa ducked under it and moved to his side. She could have landed several strikes on his ribs, but she held back. This was supposed to be about learning, not fighting. "Is this the best humans can do?" Zarthik asked, his voice rumbling with annoyance. "Run away and hope the enemy gets tired?" Lisa stopped moving and looked up at him. "Are you sure you want me to do more than run away?" Zarthik's yellow eyes narrowed. The human's tone was different now. There was something in her voice that he had not heard before. Confidence, maybe, or was it a warning? "Do whatever you can, human," Zarthik replied. "Show me what your species considers fighting." Turner started to step forward, sensing that the sparring match was about to become more serious. But Lisa held up one hand to stop him. "It's okay, Sergeant. I think Zarthik wants to see what humans are really capable of." The watching cadets fell silent. Even the other instructors moved closer to get a better view. Something was about to happen, and everyone could feel it. Lisa changed her stance, dropping lower and spreading her feet wider. Her hands moved into a different position, one that the alien cadets did not recognize. This was not the defensive posture she had used before. Zarthik decided to test her new attitude. He threw a punch with about 10% of his strength, still holding back, but with enough force to make his point. The blow was aimed at Lisa's chest and would have sent her flying across the mat, but Lisa was not there when the punch arrived. She had stepped inside Zarthik's reach, moving closer to him instead of away. Her left hand caught his wrist while her right hand pressed against his elbow. Suddenly, Zarthik felt his arm being bent in a direction it was not meant to go. Pain shot through the Korthani warrior's arm as Lisa applied pressure to his joint. His natural armor was useless against this type of attack. She was not trying to break through his defenses. She was using his own strength against him. "What are you doing?" Zarthik demanded, trying to pull his arm free. "I'm showing you what humans learned when we had to fight creatures bigger and stronger than us," Lisa replied calmly. "We learned that joints break the same way on everyone." Zarthik tried to use his free hand to grab Lisa, but she moved again, keeping his captured arm between them. No matter how he twisted or turned, she maintained her grip on his wrist and elbow. The pain was getting worse. "Enough," Turner called out. "Break it up." Lisa immediately released Zarthik's arm and stepped back. The Korthani warrior flexed his fingers, making sure everything still worked properly. His elbow ached, but nothing was broken. "How did you do that?" Zarthik asked, his voice filled with confusion rather than anger. "Leverage," Lisa explained. "Your arm is strong, but the joint can only bend certain ways. If you know how to apply pressure correctly, size doesn't matter." The watching cadets erupted in discussion. The aliens were asking each other questions in their own languages. The humans looked amazed that Lisa had managed to control someone so much larger than herself. Dr. Walsh stepped forward with his scanner. "Let me check your arm, Zarthik. We need to make sure there's no damage." As the doctor examined the Korthani warrior, Lisa noticed the other alien cadets looking at her with new expressions. The amusement was gone, replaced by curiosity and what might have been respect. Turner gathered the cadets around him. "What you just saw is exactly why we're here," he said. "Every species has unique abilities. Humans may not be the strongest or fastest, but they understand leverage and technique in ways that can surprise much larger opponents." Zarthik rubbed his elbow thoughtfully. He had trained with the best Korthani warriors for years, but none of them had ever controlled him the way this small human had. There was clearly more to these creatures than he had realized. "I want to learn that technique," he said to Lisa. Lisa smiled for the first time since the sparring match began. "I'd be happy to teach you. But first, you need to understand that real combat isn't about using all your strength. It's about using the right amount of strength at the right time." The morning's training session continued with other sparring matches, but none of them drew as much attention as the first one. Word spread quickly through the academy that the humans were not as helpless as they appeared. As the cadets prepared to leave the gymnasium, Zarthik approached Lisa. "Why did you hold back during most of the match?" he asked. "Because I was learning," Lisa replied. "I was studying how you move, how you fight, where your weak points are. If I had attacked immediately, I would have missed the chance to understand." Zarthik considered this. In Korthani culture, warriors attacked with full force from the beginning. The idea of holding back to gather information was foreign to him. "Your species thinks differently about combat," he observed. "We have to," Lisa said. "We're usually smaller and weaker than our enemies, so we learn to be smarter." That evening, as the cadets returned to their quarters, the atmosphere in the academy had changed. The aliens no longer looked at the humans with pity or amusement. 3 days had passed since the first sparring demonstration, and the atmosphere at the Galactic Military Academy had grown tense. Word of Lisa's technique had spread through the station, creating 2 camps among the cadets. Some aliens were curious about human fighting methods, while others dismissed the incident as a lucky accident. Zarthik belonged to the second group. The more he thought about what had happened, the more convinced he became that Lisa had caught him off guard, through trickery rather than skill. In his culture, warriors proved themselves through strength and direct confrontation, not through sneaky joint manipulation. The Korthani warrior had spent the past 3 days training harder than ever. He practiced his strikes against reinforced training dummies, each punch leaving deep dents in the metal surface. His fellow Korthani cadets encouraged him, telling him that he had been too gentle with the human. They believed he should have ended the match quickly to show everyone the proper order of things. Lisa, meanwhile, had been studying video recordings of various alien fighting styles. The Academy's computer system contained thousands of hours of combat footage from different species. She watched how the Korthani moved, how they generated power, and most importantly, how they left themselves open to counterattacks. During meals, she noticed the looks she received from other cadets. The humans treated her like a hero, while many aliens whispered among themselves when she walked by. Some seemed interested in learning from her, but others appeared angry that a human had embarrassed one of their strongest warriors. On the 4th day, Instructor Turner announced that they would have another round of cross-species sparring. This time, the matches would be more competitive, with cadets encouraged to use their full abilities within safety limits. "Remember," Turner said as the cadets gathered in the gymnasium, "the goal is still education, not domination. We want to learn from each other, not prove who is superior." Dr. Walsh stood nearby with his medical equipment, ready to treat any injuries that might occur. He had been concerned about the increasing tension between species groups and had recommended that the sparring sessions be postponed. However, the Academy's leadership wanted to address the issues directly rather than let them fester. When Turner called out the pairings, Lisa was again matched with Zarthik. The Korthani warrior's yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation as he stepped onto the mat. This time, he would not underestimate the human. The other cadets formed a larger circle around the sparring area. Word had spread throughout the Academy that a rematch was happening, and even some of the senior instructors had come to watch. Lisa took her fighting stance, but something was different this time. She stood more casually, her weight distributed evenly between both feet. Her hands were raised but relaxed, as if she was not particularly worried about the upcoming match. Zarthik noticed her relaxed posture and interpreted it as overconfidence. The human thought she could defeat him easily now. He would show her that the previous match had been a fluke. "Begin," Turner called out. Unlike their first encounter, Zarthik did not hold back. He moved forward with the speed and power of a trained Korthani warrior, his massive frame covering the distance between them in 2 quick steps. His first punch came at Lisa with enough force to crack stone. Lisa sidestepped the attack, but barely. The wind from Zarthik's fist ruffled her hair as it passed inches from her face. She could feel the power behind the strike and knew that even a glancing blow would end the match immediately. Zarthik did not pause. He threw a second punch, then a third, each one aimed at different parts of Lisa's body. She dodged them all, but the margin of safety was getting smaller. The alien warrior was not giving her time to think or plan. The watching cadets leaned forward as the intensity of the match increased. The aliens were impressed by Zarthik's speed and power, while the humans held their breath every time Lisa barely avoided a devastating blow. Lisa realized that she could not keep dodging forever. Zarthik was learning from each missed attack, adjusting his aim and timing. Soon, one of his punches would connect, and the match would be over. She needed to change the pattern of the fight. Instead of continuing to retreat, Lisa suddenly moved forward, stepping inside Zarthik's reach just as he threw another punch. The alien warrior's fist passed over her head while she positioned herself close to his body. Zarthik was surprised by the sudden change in tactics. The human was now too close for him to use his long arms effectively. He tried to grab her, but Lisa ducked under his reaching hands and moved to his side. From this position, Lisa could see the weak points in Zarthik's armor-like skin. There were gaps between the natural plates where the scales were softer. She could have struck these areas, but she held back. The watching cadets needed to see that humans could win without causing serious injury. Zarthik spun around, trying to keep Lisa in front of him. His movements were fast for someone his size, but Lisa had studied his patterns. She knew which direction he would turn and was already moving to stay behind him. Growing frustrated, Zarthik decided to use a technique that had never failed him before. He would feint with his left hand to make Lisa dodge in a predictable direction, then strike with his right elbow. The elbow strike was one of the most powerful attacks in Courtney fighting. Capable of breaking through armor and bone. Lisa saw the feint coming and recognized what Zarthik was planning. She had watched enough combat videos to know that most alien fighting styles relied on similar patterns. They used their superior strength to overpower opponents, but they rarely adapted when their standard techniques failed. Instead of dodging away from the feint as Zarthik expected, Lisa stepped toward it. This put her in the perfect position to intercept his real attack before it could build up full power. Zarthik's right elbow came around in a devastating arc, carrying enough force to cave in a steel door. He put all of his strength behind the strike, intending to end the match with one blow that would leave no doubt about Courtney's superiority, but Lisa was ready. She had positioned herself so that Zarthik's elbow would pass directly in front of her. As the massive joint swept toward her, she reached out with both hands and caught it. Her left hand grabbed Zarthik's wrist while her right hand pressed against the back of his elbow. She was not trying to stop his attack. Instead, she was redirecting it. Using the alien's own momentum against him, Zarthik felt his elbow being pushed in a direction it was not meant to go. His natural armor provided no protection against this type of pressure. The joint that he had used as a weapon was now being used as a lever against him. Lisa applied steady pressure, using techniques she had learned from Earth's martial arts. Masters. The human body was weaker than many alien species, but human fighting styles had been developed over thousands of years to compensate for this. Disadvantage? Pain shot through Zarthik's arm as his elbow joint reached its limit. The Courtney warrior was incredibly strong, but his joints were still vulnerable to the right kind of force applied in the right direction. He tried to pull his arm free, but Lisa's grip was perfect. She maintained exactly the right amount of pressure to control his movement without causing permanent damage. This was not about hurting him. It was about proving a point. The watching cadets stood in stunned silence. The massive Courtney warrior was completely helpless, controlled by a human who weighed less than one of his arms. The demonstration was more impressive than their first sparring match because this time, everyone could see exactly how Lisa was winning. Zarthik's yellow eyes widened as he realized his situation. No matter how hard he pulled or twisted, he could not break free from Lisa's hold. The human had found a way to neutralize all of his advantages. "Do you yield?" Lisa asked quietly, her voice calm despite the effort she was putting into maintaining. The joint lock.zr single quotes dhek single quotes s pride as a warrior warred with the pain in his arm. In Courtney culture, admitting defeat was a sign of weakness. But he was beginning to understand that human concepts of strength and weakness were different from his. "Oh, I yield," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Lisa immediately released the pressure and stepped back. Zarthik flexed his arm carefully, checking for damage. The joint was sore, but nothing was broken. The silence in the gymnasium was broken by the sound of slow clapping. One of the alien cadets, a bird like Avalon, had started applauding. Soon, others joined in, including several of the Courtney warriors. Turner stepped forward to address the gathered cadets. "What you just witnessed is the difference between strength and technique. Zarthik is one of the most powerful warriors in this academy, but Lisa neutralized his advantages through superior knowledge and skill." Lisa looked around at the watching faces. The expressions had changed again. The aliens were no longer looking at her with curiosity or amusement. They were looking at her with respect and perhaps a little fear. Zarthik approached her as the other cadets began to disperse. "How did you know I would use that attack?" he asked. "Because I studied your people's fighting style," Lisa replied. "I watch videos of Courtney warriors for hours. Most of you use the same techniques because they work against opponents who fight strength with strength." The alien warrior nodded slowly. "But humans do not fight strength with strength." 2 weeks had passed since Lisa's second victory over Zarthik, and the academy was buzzing with talk about human fighting techniques. Several alien cadets had requested training sessions with human instructors, while others remained skeptical. about what they had witnessed. Zarthik had spent those 2 weeks in deep thought. The Korthani warrior had been raised to believe that physical strength was the ultimate measure of a warrior's worth. Everything in his culture reinforced this belief, from their ancient songs to their modern military tactics. But now, a human, barely half his size, had defeated him twice using methods he did not understand. The doubt was eating away at him. Some of his fellow Korthani cadets had begun to question his abilities. They whispered that perhaps he was not as strong as they had thought, or that he was holding back too much out of concern for the fragile humans. On this particular morning, the academy was conducting its most challenging training exercise yet. The cadets would participate in full contact, sparring matches with minimal safety restrictions. Dr. Walsh had expressed concerns about the increased risk of injury, but the academy's leadership wanted to test the limits of interspecies cooperation. Lisa stood in the preparation area, stretching her muscles and reviewing her mental notes on alien fighting styles. She had been studying constantly, learning the strengths and weaknesses of each species represented at the academy. The knowledge was becoming second nature to her. Instructor Turner approached with the day's match assignments. "Rodriguez," he sighed, "you're paired with Zarthik again? But this time the rules are different." Lisa looked up from her stretching routine. "Different how? Full contact?" Turner explained. "No strength limitations. The medical team will be standing by, but you'll be fighting at full intensity." Lisa nodded calmly, though she felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. The previous matches had been controlled demonstrations. This would be a real fight, with real consequences if she made a mistake. Across the preparation area, Zarthik was having a similar conversation with his Korthani instructor. The alien warrior's yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation. Finally, he would be allowed to fight without holding back. He would show everyone that the previous matches had been meaningless because he had been forced to restrain himself. "Remember," his instructor said, "you are fighting for the honor of all Korthani. Do not disappoint us again." The pressure was enormous. Zarthik's entire cultural identity was tied to his reputation as a warrior. If he lost a third time to the same human, he would be seen as a failure by his own people. The gymnasium was packed with spectators. Word had spread throughout the academy that Lisa and Zarthik would face each other in an unrestricted match. Cadets from every species had gathered to watch. Along with most of the academy's instructors and staff, Dr. Walsh stood at the edge of the sparring mat with his medical equipment, his face showing clear concern. He had treated injuries from interspecies combat before, and he knew how badly things could go wrong when beings of different strengths fought without limitations. Lisa and Zarthik entered the sparring area from opposite sides. The contrast between them was even more striking than usual. Lisa wore standard human training gear, lightweight and flexible. Zarthik wore minimal protection, relying on his natural armor and his species' incredible durability. Turner stepped to the center of the mat. "This is a full contact match with standard academy rules. No weapons, no illegal strikes. Match ends when one fighter yields or is unable to continue. Are both fighters ready?" Lisa nodded, her expression calm and focused. She had been preparing for this moment since arriving at the academy. Everything she had learned about alien fighting styles, everything she understood about human advantages and disadvantages, would be put to the test. Zarthik's response was a low growl that resonated through his chest. He was more than ready. He was eager to prove himself and restore his reputation. "Begin," Turner called out. Zarthik moved immediately, but not with the straightforward attacks he had used in previous matches. He had been studying human fighting techniques as well, and he understood now that predictable patterns were a weakness. His first strike came from an unexpected angle, a sweeping blow aimed at Lisa's legs. Lisa jumped over the sweep, but Zarthik was ready for this. His follow-up attack came while she was still in the air, unable to dodge. His massive fist shot toward her midsection with enough force to shatter concrete, but Lisa had anticipated this combination. As she jumped, she twisted her body, using the momentum to spin out of the way of Zarthik's punch. She landed lightly on her feet, already moving to avoid his next attack. The watching cadets murmured in appreciation. Both fighters were displaying skills they had not shown in previous matches. This was no longer a demonstration. It was a genuine contest between two warriors who had learned to respect each other's abilities. Zarthik pressed his attack, throwing a series of powerful strikes that forced Lisa to give ground. His movements were faster and more coordinated than before, showing that he had been training specifically to counter human tactics. Lisa found herself being pushed back toward the edge of the mat. Zarthik was using his reach advantage more effectively, keeping her at a distance where her joint-locking techniques would be difficult to apply. She needed to find a way to get close, but every attempt was met with another devastating strike. The alien warrior's confidence was growing. He could see that Lisa was having trouble adapting to his improved tactics. Perhaps the humans were not as adaptable as they claimed to be. Lisa noticed the change in Zarthik's demeanor and realized that he was becoming overconfident. This was exactly what she had been waiting for. In her experience, overconfidence led to mistakes, and mistakes created opportunities. She began to move differently, making her dodges more dramatic and her breathing more labored. To the watching cadets, it looked like she was getting tired and desperate. But Lisa was actually conserving her energy while making Zarthik think he was winning. Zarthik saw what he interpreted as weakness and decided to end the match with a finishing move. He had been saving his most powerful technique for the right moment. This was it. The Korthani warrior planted his feet firmly and drew back his right arm. His elbow cocked back, loaded with all the power his massive frame could generate. This strike would be different from his previous attacks. It would carry the full force of his species' legendary strength. Lisa saw the preparation and knew what was coming. She had watched videos of this exact technique dozens of times. It was called the mountain breaker in Korthani culture, and it was said to be capable of cracking stone walls. Zarthik launched his attack with a roar that echoed through the gymnasium. His elbow shot forward like a battering ram, carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through armor plating. The strike was perfectly aimed at Lisa's center of mass, where it would do maximum damage, but Lisa was no longer where the strike was aimed. At the last possible moment, she had stepped forward and to the side, moving into the path of Zarthik's attack rather than away from it. The watching cadets gasped as Lisa seemed to walk directly into the devastating blow. Several humans in the audience closed their eyes, unable to watch what they thought would be their champion's destruction. However, Lisa had not miscalculated. She had positioned herself so that Zarthik's elbow would pass just beside her body. As the massive joint swept past, she reached out with both hands and caught it at the perfect moment. Her left hand wrapped around Zarthik's wrist while her right hand pressed against the back of his elbow. But this time, she did not simply apply a joint lock. She used the alien's own momentum against him, redirecting the force of his strike in a way that his anatomy could not handle. The sound that followed was heard clearly throughout the gymnasium. It was the sharp crack of bone and cartilage under stress, the sound of a joint being forced beyond its limits. Zarthik's roar of attack became a roar of pain as his elbow joint gave way under the combined force of his own strike and Lisa's redirection. The massive warrior dropped to one knee, his right arm hanging at an unnatural angle. Lisa immediately released her hold and stepped back. She looked down at the injured Zarthik with concern but not surprise. The outcome had been exactly what she had planned. The gymnasium fell silent except for Zarthik's labored breathing. The alien warrior stared at his damaged arm in shock. The elbow joint was completely dislocated and possibly fractured as well. He could not feel his fingers. Dr. Walsh rushed forward with his medical equipment. But Lisa was already walking away from the mat. She moved calmly toward the water station, showing no signs of exhaustion or excitement. To the watching cadets, she appeared as composed as if she had just finished a light exercise routine. The silence was broken by the sound of alien voices speaking in hushed tones. The cadets were trying to process what they had witnessed. A human had not just defeated a Korthani warrior. She had done it by using the alien's own strength to destroy him. Lisa took a drink of water and looked back at the mat where Dr. Walsh was treating Zarthik's injury. She felt no satisfaction in causing pain, but she had proven the point she needed to make. Humans were not weak. They were strategic. Turner approached her with a mixture of admiration and concern. That was incredibly dangerous, Rodriguez. The medical bay at the Galactic Military Academy was quiet, except for the soft hum of healing equipment. Zarthik lay on a specialized treatment table designed to accommodate his large frame, his right arm immobilized in a regeneration field. The blue light from the medical device cast strange shadows on his scaled skin. Dr. Kevin Walsh worked carefully on the injured elbow joint, using a combination of human medical knowledge and alien healing technology. The damage was more severe than he had initially expected. The joint had been dislocated with such precision that it had also caused hairline fractures in 3 different bones. "The good news," Dr. Walsh said as he adjusted the regeneration field, "is that there's no permanent damage. The bad news is that you'll need to keep this arm immobilized for at least 2 weeks while the bone tissue repairs itself." Zarthik nodded silently, his yellow eyes staring at the ceiling. The physical pain was manageable, but the damage to his pride was much worse. He had been defeated by the same human 3 times, and the last defeat had left him injured and helpless. Other cadets had come to visit him during the past day. His fellow Corthany warriors had offered words of encouragement, but he could see the doubt in their eyes. Some of the alien cadets from other species had also stopped by, their expressions ranging from sympathy to curiosity about what had happened. The humans had stayed away, probably on Lisa's orders. She would understand that his pride was wounded, and that visits from his former opponents might make things worse. Dr. Walsh finished his examination and began putting away his equipment. "I have to ask you something, Zarthik. Did you know that Lisa calculated exactly how much force would be needed to dislocate your joint?" The Corthany warrior's head turned toward the doctor. "What do you mean?" "I mean she planned this injury," Dr. Walsh explained. "She studied your anatomy, your fighting style, and the physics of your attack. She knew exactly what would happen when she redirected your strike." Zarthik was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "She intended to hurt me?" "She intended to stop you," Dr. Walsh corrected. "There's a difference. She could have torn your arm completely off if she had wanted to. Instead, she chose an injury that would heal completely while still proving her point." "What point?" Zarthik asked. Dr. Walsh sat down in a chair beside the treatment table. "That humans don't fight the way other species do. We don't try to overpower our enemies. We study them, we learn their weaknesses, and we use those weaknesses against them. That seems—" Zarthik searched for the right word. "Dishonorable." "To you, maybe," Dr. Walsh said. "But on Earth, humans faced predators that were bigger, stronger, and faster than us. We survived by being smarter, not stronger. We learned to use tools, to work together, and to think several steps ahead of our enemies." The doctor stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the Academy's training areas. "Do you know how humans became the dominant species on our planet? We didn't fight fair. We used fire, we used weapons, we used traps. We turned the other animals' strengths against them." Zarthik considered this. In Corthany culture, strength and honor were the same thing. A warrior who needed tricks to win was not considered a true warrior at all. "But Lisa is strong," Zarthik said finally. "She defeated me 3 times. She's strong in a different way." Dr. Walsh agreed. Mental strength, strategic thinking, the ability to stay calm under pressure. These are human strengths that other species often don't recognize. A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting permission to enter the medical bay. Dr. Walsh checked his monitor and then looked at Zarthik with surprise. "It's Lisa," he said. "She's asking to visit you." Zarthik's first instinct was to refuse. He was not ready to face the human who had defeated him so thoroughly. But something in Dr. Walsh's explanation had sparked his curiosity. "Let her in," he said finally. Lisa entered the medical bay carrying a small package and wearing a simple training outfit. She looked tired, as if she had not been sleeping well since the sparring match. Her expression was serious but not hostile. "How are you?" Feeling? She asked, approaching the treatment table. I will heal, Zarthik replied. Dr. Walsh says there is no permanent damage. Lisa nodded and held out the package. I brought you something. It's from Earth. Zarthik took the package with his good arm and opened it carefully. Inside was a small book with a worn cover. The title was written in human script, but the Academy's translation system quickly provided a Korthani version, The Art of War. It's very old, Lisa explained. Written by a human general named Sun Tzu about 2,500 years ago. It's about strategy and understanding your enemy. Zarthik flipped through the pages, reading the translated text with interest. The concepts were, unlike anything in Korthani military philosophy. Instead of focusing on strength and courage, the book talked about deception, patience, and using an enemy's weaknesses against them. Why are you giving this to me? Zarthik asked. Because I want you to understand that I didn't defeat you through luck or trickery, Lisa said. I defeated you through preparation and strategy. These are skills that can be learned. She pulled up a chair and sat down beside the treatment table. I've been studying your fighting style for weeks. I know how you generate power, how you move, how you think. That's why I was able to beat you. Zarthik looked at her with new understanding. You were not just learning to fight me, you were learning to fight all Korthani. Not to fight, Lisa corrected. To understand. There's a difference between being enemies and being opponents. Dr. Walsh watched the conversation with interest. He had hoped that Lisa's visit would help bridge the gap between human and alien cadets, but he was surprised by the depth of the discussion. I have been thinking about what happened, Zarthik said. My people believe that strength is everything. But you have shown me that there are different kinds of strength. Lisa smiled for the first time since entering the medical bay. That's exactly right. Your physical strength is incredible, but you don't know how to use it efficiently. You waste energy on attacks that don't work instead of adapting to new situations. And humans are good at adapting, Zarthik observed. We have to be, Lisa said. We're usually the smallest and weakest beings in any conflict. So we learn to be flexible, to change our tactics when something isn't working. Zarthik was quiet for several minutes, thinking about everything he had learned. His entire worldview was being challenged by concepts that his culture had never considered. Will you teach me? He asked finally. Will you show me how humans fight? Lisa's smile widened. I'll teach you, but you have to promise me something. What? You have to teach me about Korthani strength training and combat techniques. I want to learn how to generate more power in my strikes. Zarthik's eyes widened in surprise. You want to learn from me? But you have defeated me 3 times. And, you're still one of the strongest beings I've ever met, Lisa replied. I can teach you about strategy and technique, but I could never match your raw power. If we combine human tactics with Korthani strength, we'll both become better fighters. This concept was revolutionary to Zarthik. In his culture, knowledge was hoarded and warriors competed against each other rather than helping each other improve. The idea of sharing techniques with a former opponent was completely foreign. You would trust me with human fighting secrets? He asked. I would trust you with human fighting secrets if you trust me with Korthani ones, Lisa said. We're supposed to be allies, remember? That means we help each other become stronger. Dr. Walsh spoke up from his position by the window. This is exactly what the Academy was hoping for. Different species learning from each other instead of just competing. Over the next hour, Lisa and Zarthik discussed their different approaches to combat. Lisa explained how humans used leverage and joint manipulation to defeat larger opponents. Zarthik described how Korthani warriors built and channeled their incredible physical power. By the end of their conversation, both fighters had a new appreciation for each other's abilities. Lisa realized that Korthani strength was not just about raw muscle power. It was about understanding how to use their body structure efficiently. Zarthik learned that human techniques were not tricks or cheating. They were sophisticated applications of physics and anatomy. Word of their collaboration spread quickly through the Academy. Other cadets began forming similar partnerships. With different species sharing their unique abilities and learning from each other, the Avalans taught humans about aerial combat and three-dimensional thinking. The Gorvani showed everyone how to absorb and redirect impact force. The Chitheri demonstrated coordination and swarm tactics. In return, humans taught other species about tool use, strategic planning, and psychological warfare. They showed their alien classmates how to think several moves ahead and how to turn disadvantages into advantages. Commander Jake Morrison watched these developments with satisfaction. The integration program was working better than he had hoped. The incident between Lisa and Zarthik had initially seemed like a setback, but it had actually become the catalyst for true cooperation. 3 weeks after the sparring match, Zarthik's arm had healed completely. Lisa had visited him every day during his recovery, and they had spent hours discussing combat theory and strategy.